Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into something really interesting: how a country can strategically build the workforce it needs for the future. We're going to look at Malaysia's very specific plan to create the hands-on innovators that the modern economy is crying out for. So here's the story we're going to walk through. First, we'll look at the big problem they were facing: a serious national skills gap. Then, we'll see how they built a whole new path to fix it. We'll follow what that journey actually looks like for a student. And then, the big one, we'll see if it's actually paying off with real jobs. Finally, we'll look at the tweaks they're still making to the system. Okay, so before we can really appreciate this solution, you gotta understand the problem. And it was a big one: a national skills gap that was seriously holding the country back. I mean, this is the fundamental question, right? It's not just about more schools or more students. It's about making sure your education system is perfectly synced up with what your industries actually need, especially when technology is changing everything so fast. And that right there is the heart of the challenge. You have this thing, Industry 4.0, automation, big data, smart factories, and it demands a totally different kind of worker. You don't just need thinkers, you need people who can do. Now, what's really interesting here is this huge cultural barrier they were up against. For years, what's called TVET, that's Technical and Vocational Education and Training, was looked down on. It was seen as the second-class choice. And if you went that route, good luck trying to figure out how to get to a university degree from there. The path was just not clear. And this whole perception problem was literally built into the system. It was fragmented. On one side, you had programs accredited by the MQA, which was seen as the proper academic route to university. On the other side, you had DSD accreditation, super practical, very hands-on, but it was basically seen as a dead end if you wanted to get a degree. So students had to make this impossible choice between academic or practical, theory or practice. So what do you do when you have a system that's broken into two separate worlds? Well, you build a bridge. And that's exactly what Malaysia started to do. So the first most important piece of this whole puzzle was creating something called the Malaysian Technical University Network, or MTUN. And these weren't just going to be any other universities. They were designed from the ground up to be that bridge, connecting the hands-on world of vocational training with a high-level university education. And this bridge, it's held up by four key pillars. These are specialized technical universities, and the whole idea was inspired by Germany's super successful University of Applied Sciences model. Each one was created with a very clear mission: focus on practical, applied education that directly feeds with the industry needs. But, a bridge isn't much use if you can't get onto it. So they built a new on-ramp. It's called the ASASI Teknologi Kejuruteraan, which basically means the Engineering Technology Foundation Program. Think of it as a one-year, streamlined program at a polytechnic that's designed specifically to get students ready for the journey across that MTUN bridge. Okay, so what does this new journey actually feel like for a student? Let's map out the path from high school all the way to a high-tech career. And the beauty of it is its clarity. It's now a pretty simple three-step journey. Step 1, do well in your high school exams. Step 2, get into that one-year ASASI Foundation program to build a really solid technical base. And then, Step 3, you get priority access into a specialized engineering technology degree at one of those MTUN universities. All that confusion? It's gone. So what makes these degrees so special? It's really in their DNA. The curriculum is deliberately designed with a 60-40 split. That means 60% of the time is spent on practical, hands-on learning in labs and workshops, and only 40% on theory. This is not your traditional lecture hall-heavy engineering degree. And that practical focus, it starts on day one. Even in that foundation program, students get immersed in the real stuff, not just the theory. They're learning computer-aided design, they're programming, they're in the workshop getting their hands dirty with mechanical and electrical tools, all before they even start their formal degree program. So the whole system is engineered to produce a very specific kind of expert, the engineering technologist. Now, a traditional engineer, they might focus more on the deep theory, the complex analysis, the research. The engineering technologist, though, is the master of application. They are the ones who take a great idea and actually make it work in the real world. They are the builders, the implementers, They're the doers. All right, so here's the million-dollar question, right? It sounds great on paper, this clear pathway and all. But does it actually work? Does it lead to a job? Let's look at the payoff. Okay, get ready for this number because it is staggering. 98%. Let that sink in. At one of the flagship MTUN universities, 98% of these engineering technology graduates have a job within 6 months of graduating. That is not just a high number, it's basically the industry screaming that this is exactly the talent they've been waiting for. And look, this wasn't just a fluke or a lucky year. If you look at the trend of how many graduates went straight into a job, you see this incredibly clear upward climb. It went from around 34% in 2015 to over 60% just 2 years later. That shows you just how quickly industry confidence in these graduates grew. But let's be real. Building something this big, a national education system, is never really done. No system is perfect, and the real key to success in the long run is spotting the challenges that are still there and tackling them head on. And there are still a few key areas to work on. First up is governance. The whole thing is still spread across more than 7 different ministries, which you can imagine can get a bit messy. Then there's articulation. Making sure students can transfer credits smoothly between different programs is still a bit of a hurdle sometimes. Quality is another one. You have to constantly make sure the instructors are up to date with the latest industry skills. And finally, evaluation. They need better data that specifically tracks these ASASI to MTUN students so they can keep tweaking the program to make it even better. And really, that brings us right back to the core idea of this whole national strategy. Malaysia is making a huge bet that its future success belongs to a workforce of highly skilled doers. The pathway is there, the industry demand has been proven, and so the big challenge now is to just keep perfecting the engine that builds them.